Hello, everyone, and welcome to Burn the Ship, the podcast that helps entrepreneurs go all in on their business, and we introduce them to professionals that can help them to do so. Today, we have a very special guest. Melissa, how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic.
Excellent, excellent. Go ahead and introduce yourself and the name of your business.
So my name is Melissa Corichi. I go by Mel, and I also go by the Worm Queen. And my business's name is Let It Rot.
All right. Well, I'm going to roll with Mel if that's okay. And today we understand that time is one of our most valuable resources. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about your journey.
So I started Let It Rot back in 2015. I had been struggling with some health issues. I had been diagnosed with Crohn's disease a few years prior and was really trying to source clean, organic food to try and nourish my body in a way that helped fight my disease. And struggling to find that clean, organic food, I decided I needed to start growing my own food. Struggling to find the right kind of soil to grow my own food in, I decided I need to make my own soil. And then getting an opportunity to turn it into a business, I actually wrote a business plan to work with local producers of organic waste to reduce the amount of waste they were producing by offering a collection service and hauling their waste back to my place and then composting it with worms. I did that for about 8 years before I actually got in trouble with some local government officials. And I had to shut down most of my pickup service, and I pivoted to raising birds. So I still practice some vermiculture, but it's no longer the main focus of my farm. Now I mostly raise chickens, turkeys, ducks, and quails.
Okay. Let's take a step back and tell us a little bit about the why. So the Crohn's disease, what is that doing to your body? And then tell us how the natural food is trying to offset that. So inform us a little bit about that.
So Crohn's disease is chronic inflammation and ulcerations of your digestive system. It can affect anywhere from your mouth down to your small intestine, to your colon, to your stomach. My disease focuses mostly on my small intestine and then spreads out from there. Mm-hmm. And it makes it very difficult to absorb proper nutrition when I'm sick. So focusing on high quality foods that are filled with good nutrition was something that I decided would really help nourish my own body. And speaking with doctors, they all confirmed that it's only something that could benefit me by doing. They, of course, recommended I continue to take medications they prescribed and stay on that kind of regimen as well, which I have a combination of eating healthy and taking prescriptions to balance my symptoms now. That works really well for me. But when I was in my late teens, early 20s, I ate like trash. Okay. You know, fast food, Taco Bell was my favorite restaurant. Fast food was something I ate on a regular basis. I would drink coffee all day and starve myself until dinner time when I wasn't eating fast food in the middle of the day. So drinking soda all day long. So getting rid of those bad habits and replacing them with positive habits was something that really helped me do much better. And focusing so much on having an intimate connection with the food that I was eating and preparing really forced me to love the process of taking better care of myself.
Okay, makes a lot of sense. Now, there's a lot of different ways to go about taking care of your body when it comes to those foods, like a Whole Food store or a farmer's market. What made you focus on the dirt? Is it because of your location and those things weren't available? Tell us what made you gravitate towards the dirt.
So I did a lot of research about growing organic food and what it meant to be organic. And I came to the conclusion that organic really isn't as clean as they say it is. In organic farming, there's still a lot of pesticides and fertilizers that are allowed to be used in smaller quantities or more controlled amounts, more controlled brands. And I didn't want any of that in my diet. So I wanted to eliminate all synthetically derived amendments, additives to my food. I didn't want any preservatives in my food. I really wanted to go as clean as possible. So I decided the only way to do that was to start producing my own fertilizer to grow my own food. And when I did my research, I sort of landed on vermiculture as being one of the most efficient ways to produce clean organic soil. So it's just taking food waste, giving it to earthworms, letting the worms eat it and poop it out, and then harvesting their poop and using that as a soil amendment instead of something like Miracle Grow, which is made in a lab.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, when you first got the worms, how many worms did you get, or what did you go in the backyard and get them? Did you order them? Tell us about that first order or that first relationship with the worms.
So the first order of worms I ordered from the Worm Farm, which is a huge vermiculture operation out of California. And I bought 1 pound of worms, and they shipped them in the mail, priority mail, 3 days, got right to my door. They came in a little baggie, and I just cut that bag open and dumped it into my first worm bin. And I was in business. A few weeks later, I ordered 10 pounds of worms. There's about 1,000 worms in a pound. So I was over 10,000 worms within a few months of getting started, and they double their population every 6 weeks.
Oh,
so within 2 years, I was up to hundreds of thousands of worms. And I tell people I did such a good job taking care of them that they made me their queen.
That makes tons of sense. How much earth or what size bin do you have to facilitate hundreds of thousands of worms? Is it like an acre? Is it a foot? How much space do you have to take care of those?
So the general rule of thumb about keeping worms is you can fit about 1,000 worms in 1 square foot of space. But that's considered like a high density population. So it's not ideal for breeding and increasing their numbers. So I would tend to keep about 250 or a quarter pound of worms per 1 square foot of space. And then every 3 to 4 months, I would clean out my worm bins and start additional worm bins using the excess worms that I now had in 1 bin to start 2 or 3 more bins and repeat the process. Then, as I was breeding up my numbers to have too many worms, I would take some of the worms out of my breeding systems and add them to my traditional composting piles and let the worms kind of finish off the hot composting I was doing and just make more of a superior product to use in the garden.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, this journey started on a health kick to make sure that you're taking care of your body. What is it that made you say, hey, look, I know I'm able to take care of myself by using this process to, hey, let me start a business doing this? What happened that made you say, hey, I need to start a business doing what I'm doing?
So there were a couple things that came together to create the perfect context for me to start this business. One thing that I did was while in college, I took an elective class called social entrepreneurship, and they challenged us in that class to write a business plan for our nonprofit partner. And our partner that semester was the food bank. And one of the things that stuck out to me when we toured the facility to see how we might be able to help is they were throwing away 20,000 pounds of rotten and expired food donations. So my idea was to compost those food donations and then work with local farms to trade soil for additional food donations, henceforth expanding the mission of the food bank. I ended up applying for some grant money and I got offered $25,000 to actually start the business. So I launched a 1-year pilot project with the food bank and absolutely fell in love with what I was doing. Like just got bit by the bug and was unstoppable. So while I worked on my pilot project, I launched another pilot where I offered free pickup service to 10 people in my neighborhood. And And I did that for about 3 months and promoted what I was doing. And as soon as I started to get interest in people who were willing to pay for that service, I just added them on to the routes I already had created for the free pilot program, and eventually told my free customers that if they wanted to continue with the service, they would have to start paying, as I was phasing out all my free customers to make room for the customers who were willing to pay. Um, so as I finished my program with the food bank, I started to make my own income off of the pickup service and was kind of able to seamlessly flow right out of my pilot program and into a little side business that turned into something full time a few years later.
Okay. Now, as I was just about to go there, because as you were mentioning, the business got so big that people started complaining about it. Tell us what happened with that particular situation. Did you just have, food compost everywhere, or tell us a little bit about how that happened for you?
So I have faced a lot of I've faced a lot of issues with composting food waste in certain locations across Palm Beach County. I have never had a bunch of property to work off of, so I've always worked off of other people's properties, leasing like a small corner of space to do my composting. And one of the properties that I leased had a really nosy neighbor who really liked to complain and was really unhappy with the owners of the property that I was working off of. And unfortunately, I had a couple issues with odor control, which led to a few complaints and me getting kicked out by the sheriff, which I cleaned up very quickly and apologized for the nuisance I created and went on to a different property in a better area with less neighbors and less wind problems, so I could continue doing my composting. But that kind of started some of the trouble I faced with Palm Beach County, as she went to local officials and complained about the smell. And then I gave a quote to an engineering firm here called Pratt and Whitney Engineering to work with them to reduce their cafeteria waste. And the same week I gave them a quote, I got a call from the Solid Waste Authority saying that I wasn't allowed to be offering compost pickup services because composting organic waste wasn't legal here in Palm Beach County.
Okay.
So they asked to come see my facility, and they told me essentially if I didn't stop operating, they would start fining me $500 a day every day I continued to offer my service. And I tried to negotiate with them, explaining the state regulations here say there are no regulations on vermiculture and I should be allowed to collect food stock for my livestock. And this isn't fair. I'm a small business. How can we work together? And they just really came down extra hard on me, saying, we have 2 waste to energy facilities here, which are essentially incinerators where they burn all the organic waste to generate energy for FPL. And offering my service could severely affect their ability to burn that waste and generate power. And because of that, a company like mine can't be allowed to operate in this county.
Okay. Yeah, that's a sad and unfortunate thing that, it started with that one neighbor and they complained so much that it went up to those particular levels. But those are part of the trials and tribulations of being a business owner. I see it did not stop you. So tell us about the transition from the vermiculture over to the birds. Tell us how that transition happened.
So I did end up buying a property about 3 years ago, right before I shut down the business, with the intention of moving all my composting out to my own property. And I had to, after being served multiple cease and desist letters and also having issues with a lot of my clients being served cease and desist letters, shut everything down. And I had all of this land that I wanted to do something with, and I wasn't really sure what to get into. So my partner suggested we get some chickens. We started with 6 chickens, and very quickly, chicken math happened, and it turned into 30 birds. So we kind of leaned into it because they're very entertaining, these little chickens, these little dinosaurs that crawl around your yard eating lizards and bugs and vermin and making a little mess. So we decided to try turkeys, and we really liked the turkeys too. So we decided to try ducks, and we really liked the ducks too. So we decided to try quails, and we really liked the quails too. And now everybody knows that we have all these birds. So people ask us for eggs, and people ask us for birds. And it's kind of developed into a business, even though it started as more of a hobby to fill that void that I had from losing the vermiculture business. So it's not a full-time job for me right now. I work full-time as an insurance broker, but I work for myself. So I have a lot of flexibility in my schedule to go out and take care of all the birds first thing in the morning and lock them all up in the evening and check on them in the middle of the day. And it's fit into my current lifestyle pretty easily, and has been something that's flowed with very little resistance from the local authorities, my neighbors, my family, which were all things I got resistance on when I started the worms. So it kind of turned into this blessing, and I just reestablished Let It Rot as a bird farm.
Okay. And with the bird farm, want to dive into that a little bit more to see how, I know right now it is, not big, but it is growing. How can we help that business to grow? Who would you say, or what would you say that you're offering for that particular business, and who would be the ideal person to get you in contact with?
So my ideal client for keeping the birds right now would really be more localized people who are looking to expand their flock and want young birds or birds that are laying eggs, people who need eggs on a consistent basis. So I'm not scrambling every week to sell all the excess eggs I have to whoever I can find online. Those kinds of steady customers would really be ideal for me. But on a broader scale, all my eggs are fertile. So anybody who wants to hatch their own birds are more than welcome to reach out to me, and I'm happy to ship eggs anywhere in the country. I have Peking ducks available. I have a variety of different chicken breeds available, including Silkies and Polish. I have Coturnix quail eggs available as well that are all fertile. In fact, I just donated some to a second grade class who did a hatching experiment and hatched me 7 adorable babies that they gave back to me yesterday.
Nice. That's awesome. So you would say that, are you ready for like a grocery store, or are you just still working with individuals, or tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so right now I consistently have about 5 dozen eggs a week to sell. So I could, on a small scale, work with a store to produce those eggs as like a specialty item, at a higher price point, local, organic, free range eggs. But another thing that I do that I prefer to really focus on as far as like working in the community and putting myself out there is education. Like, I've learned so much the past decade of working in agriculture, raising the worms, raising the birds, growing my own food, making soil. I have 8 different garden workshops that I offer, and I try to teach as often as possible. So I have a class on keeping worms. I have a class on different methods of composting. I have a class on tropical spinaches and alternative edible greens. I have a class on building your own worm farm. I have a kids class for worm farms. I have a butterfly class, and I have a color class. and bringing these classes to places like libraries, community gardens, nurseries, garden centers, places where the community would come out to learn something with me
Mm-hmm.
is really what I'm looking for. This year, I set a goal to teach one class a week, and I've been pretty successful so far at doing that. But one thing I'd be interested in doing is potentially traveling to teach some of these classes to other areas. Like I've focused mostly on South Florida, Miami, Broward, and Palm Beach County. But I would love to go to Tampa or North Florida or Georgia and teach some of the things that I've learned to other communities that are interested in what it is that I know the most about.
Mm-hmm. As we're talking about the future, I know you were thinking about traveling to those places. Have you considered maybe an online type thing to try to help people, or are you doing that now?
So I'm working on putting together like a master composter course.
Mm-hmm.
There's master gardener courses out there that are run by the agriculture extensions of state universities.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to be able to offer a master composting course to that extension as well, because I think it's something important for people to learn how to do properly so they don't face the same issues I've had with irritating their neighbors and making bad smells, having fly problems, whatever else you might think about when you think of composting, and give that knowledge to other people who are just a little overwhelmed with the idea of getting started on their own composting project.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I'll definitely, as you were explaining, I was trying to think if there was any one that I knew inside of extensions, which I am because I am in Georgia, and I have worked with a couple of the state universities and their extensions for other things like tree farmers and other ones that just had farms. So I'll try to make sure to keep that in mind and get you a couple referrals. And the people that are watching, if you know of anyone inside of these things or the 4-H clubs or anything like that, please keep Mel in mind for that. Now, throughout this journey, you've had some ups, you've had some downs, and you've had some all arounds, but I am confident that you have acquired and nurtured some business skills that have helped you to be successful. Do you mind sharing with the audience today a couple of those business skills or best practices that you have acquired that could possibly help them in their journey?
So the most important quality I feel that I've gained in this long journey is my adaptability. I have faced so many situations where any other business would have just shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Between being served by the county, the neighbor harassing me, losing community garden spaces that I worked off of, and not having a location to bring thousands of pounds of compost to on a weekly basis. I have managed to come up with some sort of creative solution to every issue I faced. When I lost my property, I launched a compost service where I offered to bring my waste to people who had property and wanted to start their own compost piles. And I was able to create a network of drop-off sites within 2 weeks to deal with all of the waste that I was still collecting. Mm-hmm. When I had the smell issue, I was able to find a new location and move all of my thousands of pounds of compost off one property to another property in the 10-day period they gave me of being evicted. When I had to shut down the pickup service, I found another animal that I was interested in raising, and I became good at raising them. So the ability to see opportunity in the tribulations that you're faced with and come out of them bigger, better, and stronger and more determined to be successful is one thing that's kept me going all these years.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. You can't just stay stagnant and expect, a different result, especially when you have all of those challenges around you, because if you were just dead focus on, I'm going to do the vermiculture, the vermicompost only, then things could have shrunk down, but it was important that you were able to adapt and move forward. So that is a valuable lesson to everyone that is watching today. Sometimes you got to adapt with what's going on. So I definitely appreciate you dropping that nugget on us. Now, we've talked a lot about your journey, your business, your businesses. Well, let me ask you this. Did you want to talk about your insurance brokerage at all? Or did you want to focus on the birds?
Quick, we could shout out, I am a Medicare broker. So I specialize in coverage for people who are 65 and older or disabled. And as an independent broker, I don't work for an agency. I don't work for an insurance company. I don't have a sales quota or numbers I have to make. I have just my desire to help you find what's going to be the best coverage for you, and my empathy as a sick person who's had to navigate the insurance industry themselves for over 10 years to want the best possible solution for you too. So if you're out there, you're turning 65 or you just got your Part B and you need some help figuring out what kind of coverage is available for you, I'm currently licensed in 15 states, and I'm happy to get a license in a state I don't have yet in order to help you. Send me an email, text, or phone call. My website is melissacorichi.insurancesolutions.com.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Just wanted to touch on it because you mentioned it. And if it's another stream of revenue for you, I just want to make sure that people know about it. And that way you can help to support the other businesses in which you have. So thank you so much for touching on that. Now, we've talked all about the businesses. Now I want to talk a little bit about Mel. So let's just say that you're able to get all those people covered with their Part Bs. You're able to serve the eggs to the grocery stores, and time and money is not an issue. What is it that Mel would do with her time?
So to be completely honest with you, like being the worm queen has been one of the most rewarding things in my life. I love seeing the passion in somebody else when I teach them how to compost. I love seeing the magic in the dirt as I pile a bunch of food waste into a worm bin, and then a few weeks later, there's nothing recognizable in it. It really has been a rewarding experience for me. And if I didn't have to, make a regular income, then I would probably be full-time across the country teaching people how to compost. Mm-hmm. I would love to have my own compost facility one day. And the idea behind being a broker is to help get a little bit of funding saved up. So maybe I can get the right kind of property and be compliant and work in the compost industry here where I want to live. But in the meantime, I work part-time at a produce stand and nursery. I sell insurance and I have my birds, and I find something rewarding out of my day every single day. My Crohn's disease is in remission right now. I'm able to really eat anything I want to, but I try to eat as clean as possible. And I'm just very fortunate to have my health and my happiness.
Awesome. Awesome. I did want to ask one question about the thing that you like to grow the most, or the thing that you grow the best out of that soil. What would you say? Is it a fruit, vegetable? What is that thing that you grow the best in that compost?
So believe it or not, it's actually butterfly plants. Okay. My specialty in gardening is butterfly gardening. Mm-hmm. When I moved on to my property, my goal was to walk outside and get hit in the face with a butterfly. Okay. And I have incorporated so many different host plants and nectar sources for the butterflies that I have hundreds of butterflies sometimes out in my yard. It's really a beautiful thing. Okay. Unfortunately, the chickens do eat the butterflies. So sometimes I have to watch small tragedies happen on my farm. But it's all just part of the circle of life. So,
Yes, yes, yes. Plus, you're just with the butterflies, you're just helping the other part of the business. So it's all part of it. So you get to see them for a while, but then you also get to feed the chicken as well. So that's awesome. I just wanted to check and see what that thing was that you grew the best out of that. Now, if someone is watching today and they have questions about the composting, they have questions about the butterflies, they have questions about the insurance, what is the best way for them to get in contact with you to learn more about some of those things?
so you can call me, you can text me, you can fill out a contact form through one of my websites. My email address is just my name, Melissa Corichi at gmail.com. My cell phone number and business line is 561-287-0406. I love getting random texts from people with questions about compost or pictures of things, asking if this is compostable or safe for the garden. Um, Even if I don't know who you are, I'm happy to give you the best answer possible to your question. My website is letitrot.org. I keep my events page up to date with all of my upcoming classes and workshops and public appearances. So if you wanted to try to catch one of my events, you could see it through there. And then I have Instagram that I update almost daily. I'm at Wormy Queen. And I have a Facebook page, facebook.com/letitrot. I am not the hardcore heavy metal band Let It Rot, which is also facebook.com/letitrot. So look for the page with the worm.
Okay. Yeah, keep an eye out for those worms. And I'll tell you, Mel, it's been a pleasure hearing your story, and we appreciate you sharing, because sometimes it's challenging sharing the down parts, reliving those things. And we always honor our guests by giving them the last word. So please look into the camera and tell the people something good.
So, what I like to say to everybody who finds me is thank you so much for caring enough about the environment to have found me today and to have listened to what it is that I have to say.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Mel. We truly do appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And to everyone that is watching today, be kind and thanks.